The cabin sat at the edge of blackpine forest like a forgotten memory, weathered wood silvered by mountain storms and years of neglect. It was exactly what Delilah Mee Thornton needed: isolation, silence, and distance from the Silvercrest pack that had cast her out like yesterday's trash. She stood on the creaking porch, her honey-brown hair whipping in the autumn wind as she surveyed her new domain. 3 months had passed since Alpha Garrett Blackwood had severed their mate bond in front of the entire pack, his ice-blue eyes cold as winter steel. "You're weak, Delilah. An Omega who can't shift properly has no place as my Luna," he'd announced, his new chosen mate, the beautiful Beta Cassandra Winters, smirking at his side. The rejection had nearly killed her. The severed bond felt like someone had reached into her chest and torn out half her soul, but Delilah had survived. Barely. Now, at 24, she lived alone in the mountains with nothing but her grandmother's old recipes, a vegetable garden, and the stubborn will to prove she didn't need a pack to survive. The first snow was already dusting the peaks when she heard it, a soft whimper coming from the tree line. Delilah froze, her weak Omega senses straining. There it was again, a cry of pain. She found the pup half buried in fallen leaves, its black fur matted with blood. No ordinary wolf. Even in the fatting light, she could see the shimmer of shifter magic clinging to its small form. The pup couldn't have been more than a few weeks old, far too young to shift back to human form. "Oh, sweetheart," Delilah breathed, carefully gathering the trembling creature into her arms. "What happened to you?" The pup's golden eyes, intelligent and far too aware, locked onto hers. It whimpered once more before losing consciousness. Delilah worked through the night, using every healing herb her grandmother had taught her about. She cleaned the wounds, stitched the deepest cuts with steady hands, and wrapped the pup in warm blankets by the fire. The injuries looked like claw marks, deep, vicious, intentional. Someone had tried to kill this baby. By morning, the pup's fever had broken. It lifted its small head and looked at her with those haunting golden eyes, and Delilah felt something shift in her chest, not a mate bond, but something equally powerful. A fierce, protective instinct she'd never experienced before. "You're safe now," she whispered, stroking the soft fur between its ears. "I've got you." The pup licked her hand, and Delilah smiled for the first time in months. She named him Jasper, after the wildflowers that grew near the cabin in spring. Every day she fed him carefully prepared meals, ground venison mixed with healing herbs, bone broth enriched with nutrients, and as he grew stronger, fresh game she learned to hunt and trap herself. Jasper never left. He grew rapidly, as shifter pups did, but he never shifted back to human form. Delilah wondered if he was traumatized, stuck in his wolf form by whatever horror he'd experienced. She didn't push. She simply loved him, cared for him, and gave him the safety he desperately needed. Days turned to weeks, then months. Jasper became her constant companion, sleeping by her bed, following her through the forest, and sitting at her feet while she read by the fire. He was wickedly intelligent, understanding every word she spoke, and his presence filled the hollow ache in her heart. Winter deepened. Delilah's life fell into a peaceful rhythm, tending her preserved foods, maintaining the cabin, caring for Jasper, and occasionally making the long trek to the human town of Millbrook for supplies she couldn't make or grow herself. She was happy, or at least she was healing. Then came the day everything changed. Delilah was hanging laundry on the line behind the cabin when Jasper's behavior shifted. The young wolf, now nearly full-grown and powerfully built, went rigid, his ears pressed flat against his skull. A low growl rumbled from his chest, protective and warning. "What is it, Jas?" Delilah's heart began to race. In all their months together, she'd never seen him like this. Then she heard them, the unmistakable sound of paws on frozen earth, moving with deadly purpose. Not running, stalking. Delilah's weak omega senses finally caught up, and her blood ran cold. Shifters, multiple shifters, and their power signature was enormous, drowning out everything else like a tidal wave. Alphas. 4 massive black wolves emerged from the tree line, moving in perfect synchronization like a military unit. They were identical in coloring, but Delilah could sense the subtle differences. One slightly larger, another with a distinctive white scar across his muzzle, one with eyes more amber than gold, and the last with an elegant, almost regal bearing. Jasper positioned himself between Delilah and the newcomers, his hackles raised, teeth bared. Despite being outsized and outnumbered, the young wolf stood his ground with fierce determination. The largest of the 4 black wolves stepped forward and did something that made Delilah gasp. He shifted. The transformation was seamless, powerful, and honestly breathtaking. Where the wolf had stood, now crouched a man who had to be 6'5", broad-shouldered and muscular, with midnight black hair and those same piercing golden eyes. He was completely naked, unconcerned with modesty in the way of shifters, and devastatingly handsome in a harsh, dangerous way. But what struck Delilah most was his face, the raw emotion carved into those sharp features, relief, joy, and something that looked almost like anguish. "Matthias," the man said, his voice rough with emotion as he stared at Jasper. "Son, it's us, it's Dad." Delilah's world tilted sideways. Dad. The other 3 wolves shifted in rapid succession, revealing 3 more massive men, all sharing similar features, clearly brothers. They were all stunning in that primal, dangerous way of powerful alphas, but Delilah barely registered their appearance. She was too busy processing what she just heard. You're his father." Delilah's voice came out small, confused. The man's golden eyes shifted to her, and the intensity of his gaze nearly knocked her backward. She felt it then, that telltale pull, that cosmic snap of recognition that every shifter dreamed of and feared in equal measure. Mate. But it wasn't coming from just him. It was coming from all 4 of them. 4 mate bonds, blazing to life simultaneously, wrapping around her heart like golden chains. Delilah's knees buckled. One of the brothers, the one with amber eyes and a softer expression, rushed forward and caught her before she hit the ground. "Easy, sweetheart," he murmured, his voice like warm honey. "We've got you, just breathe." "This isn't possible," Delilah gasped, her heart hammering against her ribs. "You can't all be." "We're quadruplet alphas," the largest one, Jasper's father said gently, still keeping his distance as if afraid to spook her. "Born to the same mother on the same night, sharing one soul split 4 ways. Our mate bond works differently than most. The moon goddess destined us to share one true mate. And you," the one with the scar across his face spoke now, his voice rougher, edged with barely contained emotion. "You saved our son. You've been caring for Matthias all these months." Delilah looked down at Jasper. No, Matthias, who had relaxed his aggressive stance and was now pressing against her legs, whining softly. "I don't understand," she whispered. "What happened to him? Why was he bleeding and alone in the forest?" The 4 brothers exchanged dark looks, and Delilah saw identical flashes of murderous rage cross their faces. The regal-looking one spoke, his voice cultured and controlled but laced with barely suppressed violence. "Our pack was attacked 6 months ago. Matthias was taken. We've been searching for him ever since, following every lead, tracking every whisper of rumor. We found the facility where he was being held 3 days ago." "Facility? Horror crept into Delilah's voice. Shifter traffickers, the largest brother spat, his hands clenching into fists. They steal pups, experiment on them, try to figure out what makes us different from regular wolves. Matthias escaped during our raid, but we couldn't find him. We've been tracking his scent for days. Delilah's arms instinctively wrapped around Matthias, pulling him close. The young man, she corrected herself, leaned into her embrace, and she felt a shudder run through his powerful body. "Those wounds," she said softly. "Someone tried to stop him from escaping." "Yes." The word came from all four brothers simultaneously, spoken with identical deadly promise. The softer one, the one who'd caught her, was still close, and Delilah could feel the warmth radiating from his skin. "I'm Theodore," he said gently. "Theodore James Corvus. My brothers are Ezekiel," he nodded to the largest, Nathaniel, the scarred one, and Sebastian, the regal one. "We're the Corvus brothers, alphas of the Nightfall Pack in the Washington Territory." Washington, that was over 300 miles from here. "Delilah," she offered automatically. "Delilah me Thornton, I was from the Silver Crest Pack, but I'm packless now." She saw the question in their eyes, saw the moment they scented the faint scar of a severed mate bond on her soul. 4 identical expressions of fury transformed their faces. "Who?" Ezekiel's voice dropped to a lethal growl. "Who rejected you?" "It doesn't matter," Delilah said quickly, not wanting to get into that painful history. "It's over, I'm fine. I prefer living alone." "You're not alone anymore," Sebastian said softly, with absolute certainty. "You're our mate, Delilah, and you saved our son when we couldn't. You're ours and we're yours if you'll have us." Delilah took a step back, her mind reeling. "This is insane. I don't even know you. And 4 mates, that's rare but not unheard of," Nathaniel said, his scarred face softening slightly. "The moon goddess creates what she knows will work. We've been waiting 32 years for you, Delilah." I can't." Delilah pressed her hands to her temples. The mate bonds were pulling at her, 4 golden threads wrapped around her heart, and it was overwhelming. "Please, I need you all to put some clothes on. I can't think with you all just standing there." Sweet Theodore actually blushed. "Of course. We have emergency packs stashed nearby. Give us 1 minute." The brothers disappeared into the woods and returned quickly, dressed in simple jeans and thermal shirts that did absolutely nothing to hide their powerful builds. Delilah tried not to notice how well they filled out their clothes, or how Ezekiel's shirt stretched across his shoulders, or how Sebastian moved with the grace of a prince. "Focus, Delilah." "Come inside," she heard herself say. "It's too cold to have this conversation outside, and you probably want to spend time with Matthias." The cabin was small, just one main room with a kitchen area, a living space with a fireplace, and a loft bedroom. Having 4 massive alpha males suddenly inside made it feel impossibly tiny. They filled the space with their presence, their power, their scent, pine and smoke, and something wild and masculine that made Delilah's Omega instincts purr. No, she shut that down immediately. She'd been rejected once. She wasn't going to let her biology make decisions for her. Matthias immediately went to his father's, and Delilah watched with a lump in her throat as all 4 brothers knelt down, their hands running over his fur, checking him for injuries, their faces showing naked relief and love. "He won't shift back," Delilah said quietly. I think whatever happened to him, he's traumatized. He understands everything, he's brilliant, but he stays in wolf form." "That's okay, son," Ezekiel murmured, pressing his forehead to Matthias's. "You shift when you're ready. We're just grateful you're alive." Delilah busied herself making coffee, or trying to. Her hands were shaking so badly she nearly dropped the kettle. "Let me help." Theodore was suddenly there, his presence warm and steady behind her. He gently took the kettle from her hands, his fingers brushing hers, and the spark of contact made them both inhale sharply. The mate bond flared, stronger than before, and Delilah felt it in her bones. The rightness of his touch, the way her Omega recognized his Alpha. "I was rejected," she blurted out, needing to say it before this went any further. "My previous mate severed our bond because I'm a weak Omega. I can barely shift. My wolf is small and pathetic, and I have almost no useful pack abilities. You're 4 powerful alphas. You deserve better than damaged goods." Theodore's amber eyes flashed with anger. Not at her, she realized, but for her. "First of all, you're not damaged. You're perfect. Second, the bastard who rejected you was a fucking idiot who didn't deserve to breathe the same air as you." "Theodore's right," Sebastian said from where he sat by the fire, Matthias's head in his lap. "We can already see how special you are, Delilah. You survived a rejection. Do you know how rare that is? Most wolves die when their mate bond is severed. You're stronger than you think." "You took in our son when he was hurt and alone," Nathaniel added, his rough voice gentle. "You healed him, protected him, loved him. You asked for nothing in return. That's not weakness. That's the strongest thing I've ever seen." Ezekiel stood, and Delilah had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. The intensity there stole her breath. "We know this is overwhelming," he said. "We know you have no reason to trust us, especially after what you've been through. We're not asking you to accept the mate bond right now. We're just asking for a chance. Let us stay. Let us prove ourselves to you. Let us show you what it means to be truly cherished." "I live in a one-room cabin," Delilah said weakly. "We can pitch tents outside," Theodore offered immediately. "Or shift and sleep in wolf form. We don't need much." "Winter's coming. You can't sleep outside." "We're alphas, sweetheart. We've survived worse." Delilah looked at Matthias, who was watching her with those intelligent golden eyes. The young wolf had been her constant companion for months. How could she send his fathers away? But more than that, and she hated to admit it, she didn't want them to leave. Despite her fear, despite her trauma, something in her soul was singing at their presence. The mate bonds felt different from what she'd had with Garrett. That had been one-sided, forced, painful. This felt balanced, like 4 pieces of a puzzle she didn't know she'd been missing. "1 week," she said finally. "You can stay for 1 week, but I'm not promising anything beyond that. And you have to help with chores. I'm not running a hotel." 4 identical smiles lit up their faces, transforming them from dangerous predators to something almost boyish. "Deal," they said in unison. What have I got myself into? Delilah wondered. But as Matthias trotted over and pressed his warm body against her legs, as she felt the rightness of the mate bonds humming in her chest, she thought maybe, just maybe, this might not be the disaster she feared. The first few days were awkward. 4 powerful alpha males were not designed to fit into a tiny mountain cabin, and watching them try was almost comical. Ezekiel kept hitting his head on the door frames. Sebastian attempted to cook breakfast and nearly burned down the kitchen because her small stove was primitive and inefficient compared to their pack's modern appliances. Nathaniel accidentally broke her favorite chair by simply sitting in it. And Theodore tried to help with laundry and somehow turned all her white clothes pink. "I'm sorry," Theodore said miserably, holding up what used to be her cream-colored sweater. "I didn't know you had to separate colors." Delilah couldn't help it. She laughed. It was the first real laugh she'd had since her rejection, and it felt like sunshine breaking through clouds. "It's okay," she said, taking the pink sweater from him. "Actually, I kind of like it this color." The smile Theodore gave her could have melted glaciers. But beyond the domestic disasters, Delilah began to see who these men really were. Ezekiel was the leader, the protector. He woke before dawn every morning to patrol the perimeter, making sure no threats approached the cabin. He was gruff and serious, but she caught him smiling softly whenever Matthias did something playful. And he always saved the best pieces of meat from dinner for her plate when he thought she wasn't looking. Sebastian was the intellectual, the strategist. He spent hours talking to Matthias in a low, gentle voice, trying to coax the young wolf to shift back. He brought books from their emergency supplies and read aloud by the fire, classic literature, history, poetry. His voice was cultured and soothing, and Delilah found herself looking forward to those evening reading sessions. Nathaniel was the warrior, scarred and rough around the edges, but with a surprising gentle side. He taught her better hunting techniques, showed her how to track prey, how to set more efficient traps. He never made her feel weak or inadequate, only patiently corrected and encouraged. And she noticed he always positioned himself between her and potential danger, his protective instincts strong and unwavering. Theodore was the heart, the emotional center of the four. He was the one who noticed when she was tired and made her tea. The one who asked about her day, really listened to her stories about living alone, and shared funny anecdotes about his brothers that made her smile. He was affectionate in small ways, a hand on her shoulder, sitting close by the fire, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. And Matthias, he was thriving. With his fathers present, the young wolf seemed more confident, more playful. He still wouldn't shift to human form, but he communicated clearly through body language, expressions, and the occasional significant look that suggested he understood far more than a regular wolf ever could. On the fourth night, Delilah woke to find the cabin cold. The fire had died down to embers. She climbed down from her loft bedroom, wrapping a blanket around her shoulders, intending to rebuild the fire. She found Nathaniel already awake, sitting in front of the fireplace, staring into the fatting coals. His scarred face was pensive, sad in a way she hadn't seen before. "Can't sleep?" Delilah asked softly. Nathaniel's head jerked up, surprised. "Didn't mean to wake you." "You didn't, I got cold." She sat down beside him, close but not touching. "Want to tell me what's bothering you?" For a long moment, Nathaniel said nothing. Then, "I keep thinking about all the months Matthias was suffering and we couldn't find him. I'm his father, I'm supposed to protect him. And I failed." Delilah's heart clenched. "You didn't fail, you found him. You destroyed the facility that held him. But you're the one who saved him." Nathaniel turned to look at her, and the raw emotion in his eyes made her breath catch. "You found him bleeding in the forest and you could have left him. You didn't know he was a shifter pup. You didn't know his family was searching for him, but you took him in anyway. You healed him, fed him, loved him. You gave him safety when we couldn't." "I couldn't leave him," Delilah said simply. "He needed help." "That's what makes you special, Delilah. That's why the moon goddess chose you for us." Nathaniel reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and gently took her hand. "You have the biggest heart of anyone I've ever met, and the bastard who rejected you was too fucking blind to see what a gift you are." Delilah felt tears prick her eyes. "I'm not special. I'm just an omega who can't even shift properly." "Show me." "What?" "Shift for me. I want to see your wolf." "Nathaniel, I don't think." "Please." His voice was gentle but earnest. "I want to see all of you." Delilah hesitated, then slowly stood. She dropped her blanket and closed her eyes, reaching for her wolf. The shift was always hard for her, painful and incomplete. She felt her bones begin to change, felt fur ripple across her skin, but the transformation stuttered, got stuck halfway. When she opened her eyes, she wasn't fully wolf or fully human. She was caught in between, a awkward, painful partial shift that left her whimpering with discomfort. She expected disgust, pity, the same disappointment she'd seen in Garrett's eyes. Instead, Nathaniel shifted smoothly to his wolf form and approached her slowly. He was massive, powerful, beautiful. He pressed his muzzle gently against her malformed one, a gesture of acceptance and comfort. Then he shifted back, kneeling before her partial form. "Now shift back, sweetheart, slowly, I've got you." His hands were gentle on her fur-covered skin, guiding her, supporting her. And with his help, the shift back was easier than it had ever been. Within moments, she was human again, naked and trembling. Nathaniel immediately wrapped his thermal shirt around her shoulders, his eyes carefully averted to give her privacy. "Your wolf is beautiful," he said firmly. "She's struggling, yes, but she's trying so damn hard. That takes courage, Delilah. Don't ever let anyone tell you that you're weak." Delilah couldn't stop the tears this time. They spilled down her cheeks as months of shame and pain finally found release. Nathaniel pulled her into his arms, carefully, asking permission with his eyes first, and held her while she cried. He didn't tell her to stop, didn't try to fix it. He just held her, steady and strong, and let her feel what she needed to feel. "We all have scars," he said softly when her tears finally slowed. "Mine are just visible on the outside, but you've been scarred too, Delilah. A severed mate bond leaves marks on the soul. You're not broken, you're healing. And we'd be honored to help you heal if you'll let us." Delilah pulled back enough to look at his face, at the scar that cut across his features, a pale line that could have been hideous but somehow just made him more compelling. "How did you get that?" she asked quietly. "Rogue attack when I was 19. I was protecting Theodore. He'd gone off alone like an idiot, and 3 rogues cornered him. I got there in time, but one of them got a good swipe in before I put him down." "You saved your brother's life." "He'd do the same for me. We'd do anything for family." Nathaniel's thumb gently wiped away her remaining tears. "And your family now, Delilah. Even if you decide the mate bond isn't for you, even if you tell us to leave after our week is up, you'll still be family. You saved Matthias. That makes you ours to protect always." Something shifted in Delilah's heart in that moment. Not acceptance of the mate bond, not yet, but maybe the beginning of trust. The week deadline was approaching, and Delilah found herself dreading the day she'd have to decide. The brothers had been nothing but respectful, kind, and helpful. They'd expanded her cabin with a temporary addition. Sebastian's architectural skills combined with Ezekiel's brute strength and Nathaniel's building experience. Theodore had taken over most of the cooking, and his meals were infinitely better than her simple fare. Matthias was happy, his tail wagging constantly, playing with his father's and sleeping at the foot of Delilah's bed each night. It felt like family, it felt like home. And that terrified her. On the 6th day, everything changed. Delilah had gone into the forest alone to check her trap lines, something she'd done 100 times before. But this time, she wasn't alone. She sensed them before she saw them. 3 wolves moving through the trees with predatory intent. Her heart stopped when she caught their scent. Silvercrest pack. She ran. Her Omega instinct screamed at her to flee, and she listened. But she was weak, her wolf unreliable, and they were trained pack warriors. They cornered her against a cliff face within minutes. The wolves shifted, revealing 3 males she recognized, pack enforcers who'd served under Garrett. The largest, a brute named Marcus Stone, smiled cruelly. Well, the rejected Omega hiding in the mountains. Garrett's been looking for you, Delilah." "Why?" Delilah's voice shook. He severed the bond. He chose Cassandra. What could he possibly want with me? Seems his precious new mate can't give him pups, another enforcer, Dylan Cross, sneered. Turns out she's barren, but you were fertile. He can still smell it on you. He wants you back. Horror crawled up Delilah's spine. No, I'm not going back. The bond is broken. He has no claim on me. He's alpha, Marcus growled. He doesn't need a bond to claim what's his. You were born into Silvercrest. That makes you pack property. I was exiled. And now you're being unexiled. Lucky you. Dylan stepped forward and Delilah saw the rope in his hands. We can do this easy or hard, Omega. Your choice. Delilah's wolf surged forward, desperate and afraid. She tried to shift, tried to defend herself, but her transformation stuttered as always, leaving her vulnerable. Marcus laughed. Pathetic. No wonder Garrett rejected you. He reached for her. And then 4 black wolves exploded from the tree line, like avenging angels. Delilah had never seen anything like it. The Corvus brothers moved as one perfectly synchronized unit, deadly, efficient, merciless. Ezekiel hit Marcus with the force of a freight train, sending the larger wolf flying into a tree with bone-crushing impact. Sebastian and Nathaniel took down Dylan, their teeth finding vulnerable spots with surgical precision. Theodore positioned himself between Delilah and the third enforcer, his normally gentle demeanor completely gone, replaced by cold alpha fury. The fight was over in seconds. The 3 Silvercrest enforcers lay on the ground, alive but badly wounded, whimpering in submission. Ezekiel shifted, standing over Marcus with murder in his golden eyes. Give me one reason, he growled, his voice barely human. Why I shouldn't rip out your throat for putting your hands on our mate. Marcus's eyes widened with terror and realization. Mate, but she was, Garrett said. I don't give a fuck what Garrett said. Ezekiel's hand wrapped around Marcus's throat. She's ours. She's under the protection of the Nightfall Pack. You tell your pathetic excuse for an alpha that if he or any of his pack comes near Delilah again, I will burn Silvercrest to the ground and salt the earth. Do you understand me? Marcus nodded frantically. Good, now get the fuck off this mountain before I change my mind. The 3 enforcers limped away, tails between their legs, blood staining the snow. Delilah was shaking uncontrollably. Theodore shifted and immediately wrapped her in his arms, his warmth chasing away the cold shock. You're safe, he murmured against her hair. We've got you, sweetheart, you're safe. How did you find me? She managed to ask. Matthias, Nathaniel said, shifting back to human form. He sensed your distress and came running to get us. Smart boy. Indeed, Matthias was there, pressing against Delilah's legs, whining softly. Sebastian approached, his expression thunderous. This Garrett, he's the one who rejected you. Delilah nodded mutely. And now he wants you back because his new mate is infertile. Sebastian's voice was ice. He sees you as breeding stock. The words, so blunt and harsh, made Delilah flinch, but they were true. He can't have you, Ezekiel said flatly. He knelt before Delilah, his large hands gentle on her shoulders. I know we promised you a choice. I know we said we'd leave after a week if you wanted. But I need you to understand something, Delilah. We are not leaving you unprotected. Mate bond or not, you're ours to protect. If you don't want us as mates, fine. We'll build you a bigger cabin, set up a security perimeter, and guard you from a distance. But we will not leave you vulnerable to that bastard. Delilah looked at the 4 brothers, at their fierce expressions, their protective stances, the genuine concern in their eyes. And she realized something. She'd been so afraid of being hurt again that she'd been blind to what was right in front of her. These men weren't Garrett. They didn't see her as weak or worthless or useful only for breeding. They saw her as precious, as worth protecting, as someone who'd earned their respect by saving their son. "I don't want you to leave," she said quietly. "I don't want you to guard me from a distance. I want," she took a shaky breath, "I want to accept the mate bond, all 4 of them, if you'll still have me." 4 identical expressions of joy and relief transformed their faces. "Are you sure?" Theodore asked gently. "We don't want you to decide because you're scared. We want you to choose us because you want us." "I do want you," Delilah said, and realized it was true. "You've shown me more care and respect in 6 days than Garrett did in 3 years. You make me laugh. You make me feel safe. You make me feel like maybe I'm not broken after all." "You were never broken," Ezekiel said fiercely. "You're perfect, and you're ours." The mate bond ceremony was simple and perfect. Under the rising moon, Delilah accepted each brother in turn: Ezekiel's strength, Sebastian's wisdom, Nathaniel's loyalty, Theodore's heart. She felt each bond snap into place, 4 golden threads weaving around her soul, and this time there was no pain, only rightness, only completion. When the bonds settled, Delilah felt something shift inside her. Power, not overwhelming but steady and sure, flowed through the mate bonds from her alphas, and her wolf, weak and struggling for so long, suddenly stood taller. "Try shifting," Sebastian encouraged softly. Delilah closed her eyes and reached for her wolf. This time, with the mate bonds feeding her strength, the transformation was smooth. Bones shifted, fur sprouted, and within seconds a small, cream-colored wolf stood where Delilah had been. She was still small, she'd always be smaller than other wolves, but she was complete, whole, perfect. Matthias yipped with joy and bounded around her, and Delilah's wolf played with him, feeling young and free for the first time in her life. Her 4 mates shifted and joined them, 4 massive black wolves running through the snow with their cream-colored mate and their pup, a family united under the full moon. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of change. The Corvus brothers wasted no time making the mountain cabin more permanent. With Sebastian's designs, Ezekiel and Nathaniel's construction skills, and Theodore's attention to detail, the small cabin transformed into a beautiful lodge. They added bedrooms, 1 large master suite for all of them, with a massive custom bed that could fit 5, and a separate room for Matthias for when he eventually shifted back to human form. They installed a modern kitchen that made Theodore nearly weep with joy, a proper bathroom with a deep soaking tub, and a library that Sebastian filled with books from the Nightfall Pax collection. The cabin retained its rustic charm but gained comfort and functionality. Delilah had never been happier. Living with 4 alpha males was chaotic and wonderful. They each had their quirks and habits, and learning to navigate their different personalities was an adventure. Ezekiel was an early riser who insisted on morning patrol but always came back to bed to curl around Delilah and keep her warm. He was gruff and bossy, but his protectiveness made her feel cherished rather than smothered. Sebastian needed intellectual stimulation, so Delilah started joining him for his evening reading sessions. They debated philosophy and history, and she discovered she had a sharp mind that he deeply respected. He never talked down to her, always valued her opinions, and taught her about pack politics and shifter law. Nathaniel taught her to fight. "You're not weak anymore," he told her firmly, "but you're still small. I'm going to teach you how to use that to your advantage." The training sessions were intense but rewarding, and Delilah loved the way Nathaniel's face lit up with pride every time she mastered a new technique. Theodore was her constant companion in the kitchen, and they developed an easy rhythm, him cooking while she baked, sharing stories and stolen kisses when his brothers weren't looking. Though honestly, his brothers were always looking, and they didn't mind one bit. The mate bonds grew stronger every day. Delilah could feel her alpha's emotions through the connection, Ezekiel's steady protectiveness, Sebastian's deep contentment, Nathaniel's fierce pride, Theodore's overflowing affection. And they could feel her too, which meant they always knew when she needed comfort, space, or attention. Matthias still hadn't shifted back to human form, but he was clearly more settled. He played with Delilah in wolf form, hunted with his fathers, and slept in a massive dog bed in the corner of the master bedroom, though he usually ended up on the foot of their bed by morning. One evening, about a month after the mate bond ceremony, Sebastian approached Delilah with a serious expression. "We need to talk about the Nightfall Pact," he said gently. Delilah's stomach tightened. She'd been so wrapped up in her happiness that she'd almost forgotten her mates had an entire pack waiting for them back in Washington. "You need to go back," she said quietly. "It wasn't a question." "We all need to go back," Ezekiel corrected, entering the room with Nathaniel and Theodore behind him. "You're our mate, Delilah. That makes you our Luna. The pack needs to meet you." "I can't be a Luna," Delilah protested. "I'm just an Omega. I don't know anything about leading a pack." "You'll learn," Sebastian said confidently. "And you won't be alone. You'll have 4 alphas supporting you and a pack that's been waiting years to meet their Luna." "What if they don't accept me? What if they think I'm too weak?" Theodore took her hands in his. "Our pack isn't like Silvercrest, sweetheart. We don't measure worth by shift strength or Omega designation. We value loyalty, kindness, and courage, all things you have in abundance." "When would we leave?" Delilah asked, her heart racing. 2 weeks, Ezekiel said. "That gives you time to prepare and gives us time to send word ahead so the pack can prepare proper welcome ceremonies." Delilah nodded slowly. It was terrifying, but her mates were right. She couldn't hide in the mountains forever. And despite her fear, part of her was curious about the Nightfall Pack, about the home her mates had built, the wolves they led. "Okay," she agreed, 2 weeks. The brothers exchanged relieved smiles, and Delilah felt their happiness through the mate bonds. But their peace was short-lived. 3 days before they were scheduled to leave for Washington, a messenger arrived at the cabin. A young wolf from a neutral pack, bearing a formal letter sealed with the Silvercrest crest. Ezekiel's face darkened as he read it. "It's a formal challenge from Garrett Blackwood. He's invoking the right of reclamation." "What's that?" Delilah asked, though dread was already pooling in her stomach. Sebastian's expression was grim. "It's an ancient shifter law, rarely invoked. If an alpha believes his former mate was taken unjustly, he can challenge for her return. It requires a formal battle, alpha against alpha. But Garrett rejected me. He severed the bond. He's claiming he was under duress, that he was manipulated by outside forces," Nathaniel growled, reading over Ezekiel's shoulder. "It's bullshit, but technically within the law." "So what happens now?" Delilah's voice shook. "Now we fight," Ezekiel said simply. "The challenge is set for the new moon, 3 days from now. Neutral territory, witnessed by representatives from 3 neighboring packs to ensure fairness. All 4 of you against Garrett." "No," Sebastian said quietly. "The right of reclamation is single combat, one alpha against another. We'll have to choose who fights." Delilah looked at her 4 mates, at their fierce, protective faces, and her heart clenched. "I don't want any of you to fight for me. I'm not worth dying for." 4 voices spoke in unison, firm and absolute. "Yes, you are." "I'll fight," Ezekiel said immediately. "I'm the eldest, the primary alpha of our quad. It's my right and responsibility." But Nathaniel shook his head. You're too valuable as pack leader. If something happens to you, the pack needs Sebastian, Theodore, and me to lead. I should fight. I'm the warrior. Or me, Theodore added. I'm the fastest, most agile. I could outmaneuver him. This isn't a decision we can make emotionally, Sebastian interjected. We need to be strategic. Garrett is a powerful alpha, experienced in combat. We need to send our best fighter with the best chance of winning. They argued for hours, each brother insisting he should be the one to fight. Delilah watched them, her heart breaking, until she couldn't take it anymore. Stop, she cried. Just stop. This is insane. I'll go back to Silvercrest. I'll tell Garrett I choose to return willingly. Then there won't need to be a fight. 4 sets of golden eyes turned to her, and the fury in them made her step back. Over my dead body, Ezekiel said, his voice lethal. You are never going back to that bastard. Never. We'll all fight if we have to, Nathaniel added. We'll break every law in the shifter code, but we will not let him take you. Then what do we do? Delilah whispered. It was Matthias who provided the answer. The young wolf, who had been silent and still in the corner, suddenly stood. His body began to shimmer with the telltale signs of a shift. For the first time in 6 months, Matthias transformed from wolf to human. The boy who emerged was beautiful, about 15 years old with his father's black hair and golden eyes, tall and gangly in the way of teenagers. He stood naked and trembling, but his voice was strong and clear. I'll fight, Matthias said. Silence fell over the cabin like a heavy blanket. Matthias, Ezekiel breathed, his voice cracking with emotion. You shifted your back. I'm sorry I couldn't do it sooner, Dad, Matthias said, and Delilah's heart clenched at the roughness in his young voice, the voice of someone who'd been through trauma and survived. I wanted to, but every time I tried, I saw the lab, the cages, the pain. I couldn't. His voice broke. Theodore moved first, pulling his son into a fierce embrace. Within seconds, all 4 brothers had their arms around Matthias, holding him close, and Delilah saw tears streaming down their faces. We've got you, son, Sebastian murmured. You're safe now, you're home. They stayed like that for a long moment before Matthias gently pulled back, wiping his eyes. I heard everything you said, about the challenge, about Garrett Blackwood, and I'm telling you, I should be the one to fight. Absolutely not, Ezekiel said immediately. You're 15 years old, Matthias. I won't risk you. I'm not asking permission, Dad. Matthias's voice was respectful but firm. I'm telling you what I'm going to do, and there's precedent for it. The right of reclamation allows for a champion to fight on behalf of the Alpha. I can be your champion. He has a point, Sebastian said slowly, his strategic mind clearly working through the angles. The law does allow for champions, and Matthias is family. He has every right to defend his mother. I'm not his mother, Delilah protested weakly. Matthias turned to her, and the look in his golden eyes was pure love. Yes, you are. You saved my life. You fed me every day, kept me warm, protected me when you didn't even know who I was. You're my mom in every way that matters, and I'm not letting some asshole alpha take you away from us. Delilah's eyes filled with tears. Matthias, you've been through so much, Nathaniel said gently. You were tortured, experimented on. You just shifted back for the first time in months. You're not ready for this kind of fight. I'm stronger than you think. Matthias straightened his shoulders. The experiments, they were horrible, but they did something to me. Made me faster, stronger. I can feel it. And I've been watching you train Delilah, Uncle Nate. I've been learning, even in wolf form. This is different from training, Theodore argued. This is a real fight to the death if necessary. I can't lose you, son. Not when we just got you back. And I can't lose her, Matthias shot back, gesturing to Delilah. She's my mom, my pack, my family. If Garrett takes her, she'll die, either from being forced into a bond with someone who doesn't love her or from her own broken heart. I won't let that happen. Ezekiel ran his hands through his hair, clearly torn. Let me think about this. We have 3 days. Let me see you fight, assess your abilities. If I think you're ready, and that's a big if, we'll consider it. Matthias nodded, accepting the compromise. Over the next 3 days, Delilah watched her son, because that's what he was now, she realized, her son, train with an intensity that was both impressive and terrifying. He was fast, incredibly so, moving with a speed that even his father struggled to match. The experiments had done something to his shifter genetics, enhancing his natural abilities. But more than that, Matthias fought with purpose. He wasn't just defending himself. He was fighting for family, for love, for the mother who'd saved him when he had nothing. On the evening before the challenge, Ezekiel made his decision. Matthias will fight, he announced, and Delilah saw how much it cost him to say those words. He's ready, and more importantly, he has the right. This is his fight as much as ours. That night, Delilah couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about Matthias facing Garrett, kept imagining all the ways it could go wrong. She slipped out of bed carefully, trying not to wake her mates, and went downstairs. She found Matthias sitting by the fireplace, staring into the flames. "Can't sleep either?" she asked softly. Matthias shook his head, too keyed up. Delilah sat beside him, and for a moment they just existed in comfortable silence. "You don't have to do this," she said finally. "I know your father's agreed, but I'm telling you, I don't want you to fight for me. You're just a kid, Matthias. You should be worrying about school and friends and girls, not fighting grown alphas to the death." Matthias smiled slightly. "I haven't been just a kid since the day I was taken, Mom. Those experiences, the lab, the experiments, the escape, they changed me. I can't go back to being innocent, but I can choose what I do with what I've become, and I choose to protect my family." "I'm so proud of you," Delilah whispered, "and so scared for you." "I know, but I'm not scared. I've faced worse than Garrett Blackwood, and I have something he doesn't." "What's that?" "Something worth fighting for." Matthias took her hand. "He's fighting to possess you, to own you like property. I'm fighting because I love you. That makes me stronger." Delilah pulled her son into a tight embrace. "When did you get so wise?" "I had a good teacher," Matthias murmured against her shoulder. "You taught me that strength isn't about power or dominance. It's about protecting the people you love, even when you're scared, especially when you're scared." The next morning, they traveled to the neutral territory, a wide clearing in the forest, witnessed by the 3 neighboring packs as tradition demanded. Garrett was already there with his pack, including Cassandra, who looked thin and miserable at his side. Garrett's eyes locked on Delilah, and she saw the possessive hunger there. It made her skin crawl. "Delilah," he called out, "come here, come back where you belong." "I belong with my mates," Delilah called back, standing firm between her 4 alphas. "The ones who actually value me." Garrett's face darkened. "We'll see about that. Who's your champion, Corvus? Which one of you brothers is stupid enough to die for a defective Omega?" Matthias stepped forward, and Delilah heard the gasps from the assembled wolves. "I am," Matthias said clearly. "I'm her son, and I'm the Corvus champion." Garrett stared, then laughed. "They're sending a child. This is an insult." "I'm 15, Matthias said calmly. "Old enough to challenge under shifter law, unless you're afraid to fight someone younger than you." Garrett's face flushed with anger. "Fine. I'll enjoy tearing you apart, pup. Maybe it'll teach the Corvus pack a lesson about respecting their betters. The head witness, an elderly alpha from the Pinegrove pack, stepped forward. The challenge is accepted. The rules are simple: shift to wolf form, fight until one submits or dies. The victor claims the prize. Begin when ready. Delilah watched Matthias shift, smooth and powerful, into his black wolf form. Garrett shifted as well, larger, more experienced, covered in battle scars. But when the fight began, Delilah understood what Matthias had meant about the experiments changing him. He was fast, impossibly fast. Garrett lunged, and Matthias was simply not there anymore. He moved like liquid shadow, darting in to land quick bites before dancing away from Garrett's counterattacks. The older alpha was powerful and experienced, but he couldn't land a solid hit on the younger wolf. Garrett grew frustrated, his attacks becoming wilder, less controlled. Matthias used that, drawing him into mistakes, exploiting every opening. Then Garrett got lucky. His jaws closed on Matthias's hind leg, and Delilah screamed as she heard bone crack. But Matthias didn't hesitate. He twisted, impossibly flexible, and his teeth found Garrett's throat. Not a killing bite, not yet, but a clear message of dominance. Garrett froze. "Submit," Matthias growled, the word rough but understandable even in wolf form. "Submit or die." For a long moment, Garrett struggled, his pride warring with his survival instinct. Then he bared his throat in submission. Matthias released him and limped backward, shifting to human form despite his injured leg. He stood tall, naked and bloodied but victorious, in front of all the assembled packs. "The challenge is won," the Pinegrove witness announced. "The right of reclamation is denied. Delilah Me Thornton Corvus belongs to the Nightfall pack by mate bond and by combat victory. This judgment is final and binding." Delilah ran to Matthias, not caring about protocol or propriety. She caught him as his injured leg gave out, supporting his weight. "You did it," she sobbed. "You brilliant, brave boy, you did it." "Told you," Matthias said with a pained grin. "Something worth fighting for." His fathers surrounded them, Ezekiel carefully taking Matthias from Delilah's arms while Theodore examined the leg. "Clean break," Theodore assessed. "It'll heal in a few days with our shifter healing. You did good, son, so damn good." Garrett limped away with his pack, defeated and humiliated. But before he left, he looked back at Delilah one last time. "You'll regret this," he snarled. "No," Delilah said clearly, confidently. "I really won't. I've never been happier than I am with my real family." And as Garrett disappeared into the forest, Delilah felt the last chains of her past fall away. She was free. She was loved. She was home. 2 weeks later, Delilah stood at the gates of Nightfall pack territory, her 4 mates beside her and Matthias. Leg fully healed, practically bouncing with excitement. The pack lands were beautiful, sprawling across a valley between 2 mountain ranges. The main pack house was a massive lodge built from timber and stone, surrounded by smaller homes for pack families. Everything was well-maintained, prosperous, clearly run by capable leaders. But what struck Delilah most was the crowd waiting to greet them. Hundreds of wolves, adults, children, elders lined the road leading to the pack house. And as the Corvus family approached, they didn't look skeptical or judgmental. They looked joyful. "Welcome home, Alphas," someone called out. "Is that our Luna?" a young girl asked excitedly. "She's so pretty," another voice added. An older woman stepped forward, her silver hair braided elegantly, her bearing regal despite her age. "I'm Margaret Corvus," she said warmly, "mother to these 4 troublemakers, which makes you my daughter now, dear girl. Welcome home." Delilah felt tears prick her eyes as the woman, her mother-in-law, she realized, pulled her into a gentle embrace. "I've waited 32 years for them to find their mate," Margaret whispered, "and I can already see you were worth the wait. Thank you for saving my grandson." The welcoming ceremony was overwhelming in the best way. The pack had prepared a feast, music filled the air, and person after person approached to introduce themselves and welcome Delilah. There was no judgment about her Omega status, no whispers about her weak shift. The Nightfall pack genuinely seemed happy to have her. Later that night, in the private suite of the pack house, their permanent home, Delilah stood on the balcony looking out over the territory. She could hear the sounds of the celebration continuing below, feel the contentment of the pack through the bonds that now connected her to them as their Luna. Having second thoughts, Ezekiel's deep voice came from behind her. He wrapped his arms around her waist, pulling her back against his chest. "No," Delilah said honestly, "just overwhelmed in a good way. I never imagined I could have this. A family, a pack, a purpose." "You deserve all of it and more," Sebastian said, stepping onto the balcony with Theodore and Nathaniel. "You gave us back our son. You completed our mate bond. You made us whole." "We made each other whole," Delilah corrected. "That's what family does." Matthias appeared in the doorway, grinning. "Mom, Grandma says you have to come try her apple pie before Uncle Theodore eats it all." Delilah laughed. "Tell her I'll be right there." But as Matthias left, she turned to her four mates. These powerful, devoted men who'd fought for her, protected her, loved her unconditionally. "I love you," she said simply. "All of you, thank you for finding me." "We love you too," they responded in unison, the mate bonds glowing bright and warm between them. As they headed back to join the celebration, Delilah thought about the journey that had brought her here, the rejection that had nearly destroyed her, the lonely cabin where she'd found a wounded pup, the 4 black wolves who'd pulled up to her door and changed everything. She'd thought she was saving Matthias by feeding him every day, but really, they'd all saved each other. 3 months later, Delilah stood in the Nightfall pack's training grounds, watching Matthias spar with some of the pack's younger warriors. Her son had become something of a legend, the young wolf who defeated a full-grown alpha in single combat. But Matthias wore his reputation lightly, preferring to use his skills to teach rather than intimidate. "He's happy here," Nathaniel commented, coming to stand beside her. "We all are." "I never thought I'd be a Luna," Delilah admitted. "But I'm starting to understand what it means. It's not about being the strongest or the most dominant. It's about caring for the pack, protecting them, giving them a home worth fighting for." "You're a natural," Nathaniel said with pride. "The pack adores you. The pups follow you around like you're the Pied Piper, and the elders say you remind them of the great Lunas of old, the ones who led with heart rather than might." Delilah felt her cheeks warm at the praise. "Speaking of pups," Nathaniel's hand moved to her still flat stomach, and his eyes were knowing. "When were you planning to tell us?" Delilah's breath caught. "How did you?" "I can smell it. So can my brothers, though they're trying to give you space to tell us in your own time." Nathaniel's smile was soft, wondering. "You're pregnant, Delilah, about 6 weeks along." Tears filled Delilah's eyes. After Garrett had told her she was defective, she'd believed she might never have children. But now— "I was going to tell you tonight," she whispered. "At dinner, I wanted it to be special." "It is special, you're special, and we're going to spoil you rotten for the next 9 months." Nathaniel kissed her forehead gently. "Our Luna carrying our pups, we couldn't be more blessed." That evening, Delilah did tell her other 3 mates officially. Their reactions were everything she'd hoped for, Ezekiel lifting her up and spinning her around with uncharacteristic exuberance, Sebastian calculating due dates and making lists of preparations, Theodore crying happy tears and immediately planning nursery designs. And Matthias, when they told him he was going to be a big brother, grinned so wide Delilah thought his face might split. "Finally," he said, "someone to teach all my tricks to. This is going to be awesome." As Delilah sat surrounded by her family, her 4 devoted mates, her brave son, her welcoming pack, she thought about how far she'd come from that broken Omega in a lonely cabin. She'd been rejected, cast out, told she was worthless. But she'd survived. She'd found her strength. And she'd discovered that true family wasn't about blood or pack hierarchy or perfect shifts. It was about love, about choosing each other every single day. And as she felt her mate's hands on her stomach, felt the new life growing inside her, felt the mate bonds warm and strong and eternal, Delilah knew she'd finally found her home. Not in a place, but in the hearts of the people who loved her unconditionally. Her 4 black wolves, her son, her pack, her family. The end. Epilogue 1 year later. The twins arrived on a snowy December morning, a boy and a girl with their father's black hair and Delilah's honey-brown eyes. They named them Josephine Me and Samuel Ezekiel, and they were absolutely perfect. Matthias took his role as big brother seriously, already protective and devoted to his baby siblings. And the Nightfall pack celebrated the birth of their future alphas with a joy that reminded Delilah every day how blessed she was. Sometimes, late at night when she was feeding the twins, Delilah would think about that lonely Omega who'd stumbled upon a wounded pup in the forest. She'd fed him every day, never knowing that simple act of kindness would change her entire life. And she was grateful for the rejection that had led her to that mountain cabin, grateful for the courage to save a strange pup, grateful for 4 black wolves who'd pulled up to her door and shown her what true love looked like. Her life hadn't turned out the way she'd planned. It had turned out so much better. As Ezekiel came to take Samuel from her arms, as Sebastian appeared with a fresh bottle for Josephine, as Theodore tucked a blanket around her shoulders and Nathaniel kissed her forehead, Delilah smiled. She was home, she was loved, she was complete. And somewhere in the forest, the moon goddess smiled, satisfied with another perfectly matched bond. 4 alphas, 1 omega, 1 family. Forever.